there are just some things that we need to understand with the why behind the behavior, which is why what we do with the parenting blueprint is so helpful to parents to have that tool in advance to know these are typical tendencies in my kid's behavior. So when it does show up and it shows up a little bit harsher, that we're not shocked by it and we don't overreact to that. Welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches, where we discuss all aspects of parenting using the foundation of understanding personality dynamics to raise independent, responsible, and resilient children. My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint. Let's dig right in with today's topic and have some real talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. So have you ever felt your once chatty, once affectionate child is starting to pull away? You are not imagining it. That tween-to-teen shift is one that can feel sudden. I mean, I often say it was like someone flipped a switch. It can be confusing. And honestly, it was a little heartbreaking for me. But the truth is, this shift is normal. It's development, it's independence that's beginning to shape. And the way we show up during this stage of parenting matters more than you realize. Today, I'm joined with our Parenting Blueprint coach, Autumn Carter, who is experiencing this season with her son right now. And we are talking about changes, why it changes, and how you can still stay connected, even when your child is craving more space, more independence, and more emotional room to grow. So if you're stepping into this stage or you know it's coming, this conversation is going to give you some clarity, some confidence, and a whole lot of reassurance that this is all normal. So Autumn, I am so happy to have you on this conversation today because obviously as a mom and stepmom to seven, I've been through this a few times, but this is your first time going through this and you are experiencing it right now. So what were some of the shifts that you started to notice? Because we talked, I guess, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and you said things are starting to happen with Liam. And I was like, we need to get together and talk about this and share this with our audience, because these are some of the things that are real and they are happening to you right now. And even as a coach, and even though coaching, when we're coaching other families, when it's happening to us, it just feels a little bit different, doesn't it? So what were you starting to experience as he was entering in? What shifts were you starting to notice?
So I started the conversation with Karen by telling her, I feel like I have 3.5 children instead of 4. Like, what's going on? So it's been interesting for me to go from snuggly, wanting to talk to me, to not as much. He has headphones on all the time. He's listening to music. And he really loves techno. And after a while, it hurts my head. Like, I enjoy techno, but like this much of it, not this much. So it's been interesting to try and get his attention while he's listening to music. He wants to hang out with friends all the time. And there's a part of me, the parenting part, that was like, hold on, wait. But then I remember how I was as a child, because he and I have very similar personalities, which makes him one of the easier ones to get along with, to understand, to easily parent. I remember that I listened to music a whole bunch. I remember having the mood swings. I remember that when my hormones started really starting to crank up more, and it actually happens during the preteens, but people don't talk about this, that it affected my sleep, which affects my mood. I remember that I wanted to hang out with friends, that I was figuring out relationships. I already knew these ones within my immediate family, but figuring out relationships outside of that. He's gone from hanging out with friends all the time to they hardly ever come over to our house. My son is hardly leaving the house. It's also winter. It's cold. It's if we leave the cars outside for any length of time, there's frost on the cars. So it's really cold. So he's not wanting to be on his bike. Totally understand that. But digging deeper with him, because he is the CNS, he also tattles on these same friends in school. So he was starting to tell us, I'm being bullied. We dug in deeper and it's like, well, are you really? Or are you just being a tattletale so they're being annoyed with you? Because I would be annoyed with you too. And also, Liam, I did that too as a kid. So it was nice to have him realize, oh, wait, okay, my mom's telling me from personal experience. So there's been a lot here to unravel. And the advice that I'm giving for this, the little nugget for this section, is remember how you were as a kid. Remember the things
Yes.
that you wanted that you did not receive, and go
Yes.
from that. And remembering that we want them to explore while they have the safety net, which is now, not later in life.
I love that because I don't think in the beginning when I first experienced this, and of course this was with Kyle, who was a very different personality to Liam, and Kyle was very explosive, right? Where Liam is a lot more like my daughter Anna. And those of you who are new to understanding the parenting blueprint and the model that we work with, Liam is when we're talking about this, the S and the C, they're more supportive and cautious and supportive. So they're definitely more reserved in their personality, but it's still going to show up. It just kind of shows up differently, right? It shows up differently. But I really appreciate you bringing up to remember when we were at that stage. And I was probably a little harder like Kyle. I was more outward. I was mean. I was pushing away. I thought my mother was stupid. I could do my life better than anybody else. And I was brutal. I mean, I was really mean to her. And then it happened to me because, Kyle was the child she promised me. And then it came back around. I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I am just so sorry, because this season doesn't last forever, but it is the first time where they're really pushing away from us. And as you said, Autumn, friends are more important, the relationships are more important. And then as you were experiencing, even with him saying about bullying, and I remember this with Anna, because the mood swings of the S and C were really high. Kyle was always just outwardly, I always knew where he was. But Anna and Leah may be more reserved and calm until they explode, right? So I don't know if you experience that. Like it's even keel, they stuff, and then they explode. And Anna had a lot of mood swings as well with that personality. And I remember one time in the car mentioning to her, asking her, was everything okay? And I just noticed you're feeling, you're a little sharp with the way we're communicating. And I told her that I loved her and that I can understand her because I know her, but there are others around you who may not. And that may cause problems in those relationships. So just kind of be aware when you're interacting with people that I can be probably more forgiving as your mom because I have unconditional love for you than your friends who may just decide not to interact with you because of that. And I remember having that conversation with her. And I think it kind of struck her that, yes, I can be calm with her, but if you are like that with your friends, they may not be. They'll just go find another friend, and now you've lost a friend. So there are those things that are going to start happening as they make those changes that hopefully what I want to say, we go to coaching, from the parenting piece more to coaching them. But when this first started happening to you, how did it feel at first? Like, this is from a mom perspective, not a coach perspective, but I mean, how did it feel to you when it first you started to experience some of this?
Actually, I was excited because it went from summer, no friends around, because they're all in summer camps, parents are working full time.
Yeah.
And I make sure that I am not working full time. I make sure that there's plenty of breaks in my day. That's the nice thing about being your own business owner. So I have space for my children, especially during the summer. I schedule less coaching calls, I do less podcast guests and that type of thing. So, and they are in summer camps, just not all summer long, because I find it's important that they also feel some boredom and that they also are in charge of their day again. Do you remember how much you missed that as a child? And now as an adult, you kind of can, but you forget that you can. Mm-hmm. That whole adulting thing. It's good for them not to be told everything they have to do during the day. So we explore their interests a lot during the summer. So he went from having his friends all the time in school to they weren't really around during the summer. He had the opportunity for it. He wasn't really trying for it either. So once school started again, he realized, and when school starts, they get different classrooms and they make new friends. So these ones became kind of stale. So he had new ones. And he's navigating that. He has a bigger boundary that he can bike in, so he can really go out. We aren't as concerned about where he's hanging out because he has an Apple Watch, so we can track him. So he doesn't have to tell us everywhere he's going every time, because we can see when we need him. He checks in once in a while, and he's supportive and cautious. Like, once it gets to kiddo number 3, it'll be different. He's lying right now, so he's not having play dates. Not until he can stop lying, and then we can trust him to be at other friends' houses. But for our first child, we have been excited, but it's also been, whoa, it's more time with friends than we expected.
Right.
Whoa, none of the kids are snuggling with me anymore. I went from doing the love languages quiz where physical touch was like negative numbers for me because I was pregnant and nursing and toddlers and like, stop touching me please, to wait, I miss physical touch now. So now it's nice that I remind my husband, hey, you know how physical touch is your love language? I want some of that. Come snuggle with me, like those types of things. And it's allowed for my husband and I to focus more on our intimacy now that the children need us less. So it was that reminder that I can take care of my wellness. But it went on long enough that it's like, wait, it sounds like I might need to actually adjust for this instead of this is just a reprieve. So once I got over the excitement, then it was that sadness. It's kind of that ice cream swirl where there's a couple feelings going on in there. So it was spending time, what am I feeling? Sharing that with my husband to have him reflect it back so I could get deeper into what I'm feeling. I swear he's a natural born coach, so he is perfect for me. And having conversations with our son. So right now we're noticing that he's not really hanging out with them. What's going on? Let's talk about relationships. So last school year, because he is very supportive, that means that he is with other people. And he is so much so that he finds and he befriends the children who are struggling the most, which is good for the kid that's struggling. However, then my son becomes a bit of an outcast because he's friends with that child who's struggling. And the other children see him as he's protecting this child so much that now he makes himself an outcast. So it's helping him understand those dynamics of relationships, which can be hard if you struggle in relationships yourself as an adult. So it's giving space for that. And we've already gone through the body book over the summer with him. I think it's actually called the body book. There's one for boys, one for girls. We did that with our two oldest over the summer and had discussions. We were starting to notice that his leg hair was coming in darker. So it's like, okay, it's time to start talking about this stuff. Yep. Time to start talking, because we were starting to have that fight of you need to wash your face every day. Like, you're starting to get acne. Let's take care of it now. Realizing that some of my own stuff was coming up because I had acne as a teenager. And it's like, okay, not putting my stuff on him. So he's a reader. So it's finding things that they can consume that's not just you, to them.
Right.
So the next one will be a book on relationships that's built for tweens, because, and I've had this conversation with him several times and will continue, that right now he is learning fundamental life skills, how to have relationships, because he will have relationships for the rest of his life with people. So you're fumbling it up now where it's not as catastrophic because you're constantly being switched into different classrooms. You're being signed up for different activities. You're in more pools of people that you can have as friends. Whereas an adult, the places where you find friends shrinks a lot. I'm talking to him about that. We're talking to him about his own responsibility in all of this, how his body's changing, how things are developing, how I remember for my husband and I, and we've talked about this with our oldest, because he has my body type. And the men on my mom's side of the family are ridiculously tall. My husband's tall. I'm tall. I'm pretty sure our son's going to be taller than both of us. And my husband agrees, but he'll jokingly be like, no, that's not happening, type of thing. But we've had this conversation with him about how we both felt linky and awkward. And like we didn't fully grow into ourselves until we were done growing. And now it's like, now my arms work properly because my brain was ready for it to be this length when it wasn't, type of thing. So we've had that conversation with sports and stuff like this. But I think the main thing with this is getting in touch with yourself.
Yeah.
And
I love how you reference the body book. And And when we start getting into helping our kids understand their sexuality, how their bodies are going to change going into adolescence, I relied on books myself. So I'm glad you brought that up. And for parents, if you can be proactive before it happens with introducing those books as it begins to happen, the kids will also know that it's normal. Because honestly, I don't think I knew the right words to use with my kids at the time. So I did rely on those types of books that we could read together and discuss together, because I'd rather do it. And I'm sure my kids probably heard stuff before I even got to that, because they just will. But I wanted them to hear the pure way, from us, as guiding them through what is going to happen, how your body's going to respond. And as you were saying, you see the dark hair, you start to see acne, you'll start to get more body odor, and personal hygiene. But when we are able to do this as a book together, the kids know that this is normal, it's happening, and when it's happening, we can talk about it. It just opened the door to conversation rather than waiting for things to happen and feel as though I needed to backtrack. So I think that's a proactive way for our listeners, that just research the books. You can find a lot of things. I think I bought our stuff at the Christian bookstore. I was just following a series, so there were age development that I was able to bring that in. And then they were hearing it from me and not from the street or anywhere else. And I felt at least we've covered it. And then it opened the conversation. Was it awkward at first? Sometimes it was, because, I'm the mom and we're talking about some things that they kind of thought might be kind of a little weird. But at least I was able to have that conversation with them, that if we did need to have other conversations, they knew it was an okay place to go. So I'm glad you do that. It's called The Body Book. Is that what you called it?
It is. Okay. And there's no religion based in here. It's just science.
Right.
Yes, I'm religious, but I want to start with like the science and
right. Biologically, what's happening.
Yeah. And do it from the empathetic side of like, this is what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we can too science it, if you know what I mean? Where let's put some empathy in here and some real life experience.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go through all of that before I start layering in more of my beliefs and morality into there.
Yeah.
Because that is coming. They already get that from our church-based discussions at home, from going to church, all of that. But I wanted more of, like I said, the science, my degrees in applied health. So my oldest, because of his age, when I went back to school, he was, during COVID, we had our computers right next to each other. So I was doing my schoolwork and he was doing his. So, and he would look over my shoulder. So there were several times where I had a sticky note over some of the pictures because they were a little too graphic for his age when going through like anatomy, those classes. But the ones that I could show him, I would show him and I would read text to him. So I ended up getting him his own anatomy book for kids. Right. And he's gone through, I think, everything in that book. Yeah. I don't think we even have the book anymore because he wrote all over it. So he already had a foundation. So the body book was getting past that. And then my daughter was interested, and they're 3 years apart. So I started her on that track, especially because I'm more nervous. So I want to do more research on how to do it right. I don't feel like my parents did a good enough job.
No, me neither. Right.
When I started my cycle for the first time, my mom was asleep and I got up to use the bathroom and I'm like, you told me that it's okay that I'm bleeding, but also, Right. And it's scary. She was crabby and just threw it at me and closed the door again. So it's like, yay. I don't want to do that to her. So and I have a lot of feelings about that. There was also abuse as a child that my children don't have. So at least that layer is totally gone. But I want to do more work with her. My husband's a little more involved with our son than our daughter in that aspect, because I think gender makes sense. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah. For me, it's making sure that they're starting to understand these things. We want to have these conversations more during the summer when we have more time, and they're not getting influence from as many friends and from school and everything else, so that they have the space while we're driving to different things, because I'm driving them around a lot more during the summer, to have those discussions. Especially, I try to layer it so that one child is in summer camp while the others aren't, so I can get a little one-on-one time.
One-on-one, right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And my husband tries to change his schedule up so that I can do that, where I take one kid to the grocery store, not all of them, so we can have those discussions.
Or opportunities to have the discussions, you know. I mean, when you have that one-on-one time, it's amazing what will come up. And when we talk about the things that are happening developmentally, I mean, we did mention, you know, the hormones start changing, and then that's the brain development, and so that can cause different reactions and responses, the body changes that are happening, and they start to feel a little insecure about themselves, you know, especially when we're in that age group where they all don't pop at the same time. You know what I mean? Like my boys were a little late. Anna was early. As I said, you know, 10 years old, she got her period. And can I tell you, I got my period at 12. And so I hadn't started that. So kind of like you, it happened, and it's not like she hadn't seen it or didn't know about me, but it hadn't happened to her, and we're not prepared at the age of 10. I wasn't, so I was a little behind on that. But you know, as soon as we got together, I just didn't. 10 was just early, but I think for some girls it can happen that early.
I was in
I'm
third grade.
assuming, you know, 12 or beyond, because that was my situation, but it wasn't for her. And so these are things that are happening developmentally, but inside, because they're still unsure about themselves, sometimes it comes out in behavior and reactions that we have to be sure that we are not overreacting to that reaction and making them feel uncomfortable. And we touched a little bit on this, but because of the foundation of what we use in our parenting model, you know, how personality really influences the way our kids are going to step into this. And I think we're all going to have various levels of the outburst and the moodiness, but depending upon the personality, I just want our listeners to know it may show up a little bit differently. That's why it's so important to understand how your child is wired, because what you're seeing in Liam is very similar to maybe what I saw with Anna, a little bit more reserved, and then I'd have those explosions where Kyle was always on edge. Everything was an explosion in his personality, which meant that there was no relief for me. I felt like I was walking on eggshells most of the time with him, trying to just not escalate it. It was not an easy time with him, but just knowing that, first of all, it really did feel as though I was being attacked, but then I also had to remember what was happening to him and have that empathy of what he is experiencing, and try and be compassionate and understanding and not take it personally. So there are just some things that we need to understand with the why behind the behavior, which is why what we do with the parenting blueprint is so helpful to parents, to have that tool in advance to know these are typical tendencies in my kid's behavior. So when it does show up and it shows up a little bit harsher, that we're not shocked by it and we don't overreact to that. And so there were a lot of emotions when they start pull away. You talk about the friends coming in, and I know for myself, I had close relationships with my kids like you do. You know, I really enjoyed being with my kids. And when they started pushing away and wanting to be with other people, it was a little sad for me because like I enjoyed being with them, or maybe I'll just be honest with you. I think I enjoyed being needed by them. And then, as you had mentioned, I wasn't needed as much, but that was my job, is to raise them to be independent, resilient young adults. And when it started happening, it was almost like, not
You're
yet.
doing a
I'm
good
not done with you
job.
yet.
You're doing a good
So
job. Yeah.
yeah. So what helped you steady yourself? Because you know you're so wise and so knowledgeable in so many areas that, you know, did you feel some twinges of things that almost felt personal to you? I mean, did you go through that? Yeah. So
I'm
how did it
sure it
feel?
will
How did it
happen
feel for
more.
you? Because just so our
Yeah.
listeners know that, you know, you're probably going to have some feelings, and there were times I was sad and there were times I was mad, you know. So I don't know, how did that work for you?
I tell all of my clients I'm going to go back into therapy as soon as they're teenagers and when the sass really comes out and the sarcasm, because I know I will take it personally. And
Mhm.
my husband will have to remind me all the time. Like, I already, like, I know that's going to happen. I know what I'm going to do about it. And I think that's helpful, is to think ahead.
Yeah.
Like, do that future forecasting of, like, what am I going to need? What, this is going to happen. What support do I need? And then from there, what support do my children need? Especially if, say, I was a single parent or my significant other made it so I was. Like, they're not mentally available, emotionally available. What can I do to make sure there's a village of the opposite gender for them, especially? Because they really should have both genders. And if you're thinking that I'm trying to be one gender is better than the other or anything else, no. We need both genders because it brings a better picture. And we also need to have different personalities around our children. They need to see that we are not in an echo chamber, that all of our beliefs are being echoed back. They should see other beliefs. They need to have this stuff while they're young, while, and I'm going to keep saying this word, they have the safety net of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They need to explore it now. It is so much harder if they explore it later. That's when you end up having grandchildren before you want. That's when they end up exploring drugs outside of, because we need to remember that we are not going to be able to control them their whole lives. So we need to start letting go of the control now. And if you're struggling with that, seek help for yourself. Your wellness comes first.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
as Karen and I were talking before, my oldest and I, Drew's my husband. My oldest and I have the opposite personalities. The S and C are opposite for us. So we can butt heads, but we also get along really well, if that makes sense. So both of us this morning were exploding at each other.
Oh, no.
I haven't been feeling well. My health has tanked because I've finally taken care of my stress enough that now my body is like, and you have stuff to take care of here. So I've been working on that, which means I'm not going to be feeling well for a while I figure that my body is releasing mercury, which is great, but also gross. So there's a lot there. Brain fog, like lots of stuff going on. Mm. So my kids and my husband have been very supportive as I've been going through this. But I'm starting to I had a pretty good day yesterday where I didn't really have fog. It was pretty like stable for a window of time. And then this morning it rolled in pretty thick, and I'm trying to parent, and my husband's at work, and my children are crabby, and just, when they go against you. And I didn't sleep as well, so I'm crabby. My oldest didn't sleep as well. He had his vaccines yesterday, so he's crabby. So we're just at each other. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't big. We can totally fix it when he gets home from school. Like it'll be fine. But there's a reminder that that's going to continue to happen if I'm not taking care of myself. And if I'm not giving him the chance to feel seen, which I realize, and I've talked to him about this several times, that I'm not giving him that chance to feel seen enough. I'm not using my coaching skills of listening enough with him, especially because I have more children. So sometimes the way I parent is the take a ticket. It's not your turn yet. You wait your turn. Yeah. And
you're so wise to be able to catch what's going on where, not everybody is able to do that. I knew that I had my triggers, and a lot of my triggers were Kyle just being so blatantly defiant. I mean, he was always defiant, but then we got into adolescence, and now he's bigger. And it's louder, and it just feels harder. And so there were certainly some things that I had to regulate myself and not get hooked into that, and try and make sure that I could bring it down. Not that I wanted him to feel that it was okay to speak to me in the disrespect and the sarcasm and some of the things. I would have to let it go in the moment and then go back and talk about it later, because if we try and talk about it in the moment, they just become defensive. So sometimes it's later in the evening when things are quieter, and you can go back in before bedtime and say, we were communicating a little earlier today, just felt a little bit harsh. Is everything was okay? And, sometimes when you speak to me that way, it does feel as though you're disrespecting me. And I know we have very direct tones, but sometimes it just feels off. So if I feel it gets to that way and it's starting to feel a little rough, how can we kind of catch that? Like we would have to go into problem solving with that, where I could just give him a look like, yo, enough, or what could that be that we could collaborate? So I don't always feel like I was being assaulted sometimes, because sometimes parents are feeling that way, with how our kids are responding, which leads me into the other thing I want to talk about is ways that we can still stay close while we're giving them their independence. And some of the things that you talked about were the things that I truly agree with. I'd rather my kids make a mistake and fail where I can coach them and problem solve them and use it as a learning opportunity, and not protect them so much that they never fail, they never feel the pain, they never feel the disappointment or the hurt. And then they get out in the real world when they're older and they don't know how to handle it. And is it hard to see our kids be hurt and disappointed? It is. It really is. But I also knew that this is part of us raising raising them to be resilient kids and not overprotecting them from not ever feeling the feelings, right? And not ever feeling that level of disappointment or hurt by a friend who doesn't want to sit with you at lunch anymore. I mean, some of those things were going on. And Anna was probably had the most difficult time in middle school as a girl, because middle school girls were flipping mean. I mean, mean. And she was the nicest, sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. And they were like chewing her up and spitting her out, And she just was like, why are people so mean? Like, she just didn't understand why. But then again, they were all going through the same thing. They're all going through adolescence. They're all moody. They're all trying to find their hierarchy. But let's get to some practical solutions on how we can stay close to our kids. And I'll just share what I had to do, and even some of the things that I've coached some of our clients doing. And you had talked about this, is giving them space. Giving them their space, giving them their privacy, letting them have some of that independence. Not that they're totally not engaging with us, but allow them to have time on the headphones, allow them to have time in the room alone, allow them to spend more time with their friends. I always liked being the house where everybody came. So, I mean, I was certainly open. We had a completely finished lower level where they could play their games and those types of things.
Tell us why. People need to know why you want to be that house. Tell us.
Yeah, why. I did. Oh, let me tell you why. Because then I knew everybody. I knew what was going on, right? Because, and I don't want to say that I was mistrusting, but maybe I was. But number one, I think it's part of my personality. I love having everybody around. And so they'd come in, they'd sit in the kitchen, they'd have a snack, and then they'd go downstairs and either play on their game system, or Kyle was always D&D, the things that they were doing. But I knew the kids knew me. And honestly, in the end, and I know that could probably be a whole nother episode, was I almost became a mentor and a coach to some of these other kids who maybe did not have parents that they felt that they could talk to then, And so it was really the village, and I didn't mind being the village house, but allowing that, but giving them some space to have that independence, And so, and there was another mom that I had coached that had a daughter who, again, was pushing away. The mom was very relational, and it was breaking her heart. I mean, really breaking her heart. It was devastating. And we just really had to talk about giving her space and letting her know you're available, and not always pushing that we always want to be together, because then then they push back harder and it hurts even more. But just letting them know that we're doing certain things. Would you like to join me? You want to do this. And if they don't, not take it personal or put the guilt on them, but you will find if you're not pushing so much, the next thing you know, they do want to spend time with you. They do want to go out with you. They do want to go to the mall with you. They do want to sit in the hot tub with you, because you've not been pushing yourself on them every single time they're in your presence. It's like, just let them be in the house, let them do their thing. And so we're allowing them, as we talk about that space, without feelings that we're pushing or interrogating or inquiring. Kyle thought that I was interrogating when I was asking about things. But if I find that if I'm asking and he's private and guarded because that's his personality, he didn't want to talk about it, I had to just let it go, because the more I pushed them, the more I was going to push him away to not want to be around me. So, how I know you've already mentioned a little bit about how you're opening that gate, I'd call it, opening the gate and giving them more room to roam. But with doing that, let me ask you another question. What are some of the things that you think we need to avoid during the stage, even if we're tempted to do it? What should we not do?
The guilt trip.
Yeah.
For one thing.
Yeah.
And let me go back just a little bit. What you're talking about is light up when they want to spend time with you.
Yes.
And let it be about them and giving control to them. Like, when you're going somewhere, maybe let them be in charge of at least some of the music. If you can't stand the music, some. If you can, all of it. So, find ways that they can have autonomy. Yeah. So, avoid controlling.
Yes.
Work on repair.
Mm-hmm.
And work on letting them see your real personality, who you really are, and see that you're still growing and developing too. So as much as you need to update your Google map of them, they need to be doing that of you. Right. Show them the things you're working on. Make sure that as they're pulling away, you're giving them the space to, and you're taking care of yourself. Yes. Hey, wait. You can stay at home now, and you really don't want me around for a little bit, and you're going to be okay. I'm going to go for a walk with a girlfriend. Right. Find things like that. Yeah. Go have a coffee with somebody if you're a coffee drinker. If you're not and you're a tea drinker like me, we'll hang out. So find things that you can do for your own well-being while they are finding their own things that work for their well-being that are outside of you.
Yeah.
You are
And
no
not
longer
wallow
their
in our
entire
own
world.
sadness and disappointment that they're not living up to our expectations of what we need. And that was the
Yeah.
one thing when you were saying, checking in as to why was I so hurt? Why was I not just excited that they're entering into that? I think the sad part of me, because of the relationship side of my personality, was that I felt like I was losing my friend, my kid. Well, I'm not saying, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. We
Yeah.
were just close, and I enjoyed hanging out and doing things with them. And I love being a mom. And then when they started not needing me, that was hard. But it was not my job to put a guilt trip on them.
Right.
Because I think I may have at times, and only because they could read my face or something. You know what I'm saying? That you didn't want to
Oh, I
hang
don't
out
have
with
a poker
me,
face either.
right? You didn't want to come out. You didn't want to hang out with me. But when you've given them that space, as you were saying, go out and get a cup of tea or meet a friend or take a walk, and they realize that you're not. Hanging all over them, then they will come around on their own terms, and it's just different. It's just different. And so the mom that I was talking about, one day she just knocked on her daughter's door and, maybe said, I'm going to go sit in the hot tub. Do you want to join me? And she said no. And then a little later she showed up, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like, you never want to do anything with me anymore. Those types of things. It's just, don't do that. Okay. That's the things that we don't want to do, is put that guilt on them, because they're going through enough already. We don't need to be throwing on top of it. Just respect their independence and guide them, as you're saying, as they enter into relationships. Another thing that I did is I shared some of my ugly from my childhood. I mean, some of the bozo things I did with my friends, or something that happened in my friend group. So they realize that when this does happen, that it does happen, and we will recover. And yes, it's going to hurt and it's going to be sad, and you may have to find different friends, or maybe you can repair that with your friend. But sharing your humility and your story, and keeping that communication as open as possible. But then there's going to be times when they don't want to talk, right?
So when that
And
happens, give
yeah,
them the space to not
give them
talk.
space. Yeah.
Because I'm that type, the cautious, where I need to overanalyze something for a
Mhm.
bit to really, especially because I wasn't given the chance as a child, to really
Mm,
start to, what is that actual emotion that is coming up that then I'm putting this negative thought to, and I need to figure it out for myself. And once I can kind of, oh, okay, I think it's this, then I'll go and talk to whoever I need to talk to about, okay, I feel like it's this. And I'm not sure if I should take this personally that happened with you or not. So use some Brene Brown speaking here. But this is what I felt like. Not you made me feel like. This is
right.
what I felt like.
Right. Yeah. Putting
And
on using the I messages and not the you messages. So
And then
um
one thing that I'm planning for next year is, he's in fifth grade now. Next year he will be in middle school.
yeah.
Is I get to have one-on-one time with him again.
Uh,
So this year he started waking up earlier to get one-on-one time with me, and then my daughter started too. So now he gets no one-on-one time with me. But next year he will. It'll be built in, and I'm already planning on fixing my schedule so that I won't have any coaching calls. Nobody can schedule with me by the time he gets home from school. And I told him, and this is the kicker here, is that that time will be available to you. But if you don't want me during that time, I can easily find something else to do. You
right.
just let me know.
Yeah.
If you want to go hang out with friends, whatever. But I am the most available for when he comes home from school and he needs to just blah all over me,
Right.
because he will get that one-on-one time and not have to fight his three other siblings.
Yeah.
Or my
Yeah.
husband's coming through the door and have to fight for that time with his dad as well.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting that we're now mom and dad, not mommy and daddy. By the way,
No.
you're getting
Even
used to
that,
that.
right?
And that I can say Drew instead of daddy. And he's like, just first name is fine type of thing. But it's remembering that we can up level our vocabulary,
Yeah.
and most of all, set aside time for them, but have a book ready, have whatever else ready. Make sure and be interested also in the things that they're interested in.
Yes.
Know their friends' names. That was always ridiculous that my parents couldn't remember my friends' names or didn't care. Would just say your little friend, your little life. My mom called everything little to me. And it got to the point where had been married for a few years, and my husband finally was like, okay, let me help you through this because it's bothering my wife more than you ever realize. But remembering that you are developing as well, so are they. You guys can develop together.
Yeah.
And if there are deep enough struggles, reach out to us as parenting
Yeah.
coaches
Yep.
And if it's deeper than that, we will also refer you to therapists.
Yep.
We have a network that we can share with you of support, because parenting is hard. It's
Yes.
so challenging. There is so much growth, and I feel like the slope is straight up. If you're using that math slope analogy, the learning curve is very steep,
Yep.
but it is absolutely worth it. And I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I feel like it is one of the best self-developments is being a parent, because wow,
Oh yeah,
you're
it
going in the fire.
has to. Yeah, it
Yeah.
has to. And
And
because it
especially,
is, we are entering into a new season and they're changing and we need to change with them. We need to adapt. And this is where most of my clients come to me is in this stage because they're unsure how to navigate through it. Now, some people are proactive and say things are happening, I'm not quite sure what to do, and they're proactive. And then there's others that realize it gets a little nasty and then we have to go back and repair and restore. But it's it's doable when you go back and humbling to your kids. I remember at one point with Anna was struggling a lot with migraine. She was a performer. I know one summer camp she was doing a musical and she was in a migraine cycle. I knew she was. I couldn't believe she was performing as well as she was. But I went backstage behind at intermission and I brought her a water bottle and a granola bar just so I wanted to keep her hydrated and get her something to eat. And I walked into the dressing room. Autumn, she looked at me and was like, "What?" And I was like, all right, I maybe didn't
I'll
make
run
that
away.
face, but I felt it. Like I felt, ugh. And I was like, and it was like this where it's like it was not cool for me to show up in the dressing room with her friends anymore, right? So I just said to her, I just want to tell you, you guys are doing an amazing job. I am loving it. I just wanted to bring you a snack and some water. I'm really looking forward to the second half. I'll see you after the show. But I mean, because before that was never that way. We'd always come in, I'd always sit, fix her hair, can you help me with my costume? You know what I mean? Like we were together. And then it was like, I felt that one. And then when I had that conversation with her afterwards, and I said, I know we're entering into a different season of parenting where you, and I want this to go well for us. You're growing up and becoming more mature, and I'm needing to adapt to that. So what do you need from me right now? And she said, I just want you to know that I got it, and if I need your help, I'll ask you. And I was like, thanks. We can do that. But I mean, it stung at first because we were so close going into that. And I think that's the hardest part is when you are that close and the switch flips and it just stings. And that's when we have to pause and say, it's not personal. This is natural. It's just finally showing up, right? And so keeping that communication open, even when they don't want to talk, is like you were saying, taking a walk, being available, riding in the car. Those were the times where it would just be quiet. And with her especially, we would walk after dinner and no one would say anything for the first half a block. But then after we got to the first half a block, then she'd start spilling. But I wasn't pushing and asking questions to get answers. I just let it go and let it flow. And then she would. And then we could have that conversation and dialogue because I was missing it. But for me to push my needs because I wanted that was not necessarily what they needed at the time. So I had to, this is what we need to remember, parents. A lot of times we are trying to get our kids to meet our emotional needs instead of us adapting to meeting theirs. Because when we meet theirs, they will meet ours. It'll just work that way. So once I gave that space and realized that when she was ready to talk, she would, we had amazing conversations. We'd walk for, 45 minutes. And then maybe the first 15 minutes, no one was saying anything. We just kind of walked in silence and enjoyed the nature. And then she'd start talking about school or start talking about dance or whatever it was. And then it would flow. So keeping that communication open. So I want to, I'm going to get into a closing question here for you, Autumn. But what would you say to a parent who's really feeling scared that their kid's slipping away? What would you tell them now? Because that's how it feels sometimes.
It is. And the biggest part of communication that we fail at, and we talk about with little kids, you have 2 ears, one mouth. We have two of these on our head for a reason. We need to be using our ears more.
2 ears and one mouth. Use them appropriately. I know. Me too.
Yeah. And really giving them the space for that. And what you talked about, and somatics wise, it's sometimes the kids need that movement in order to then start sharing things. I was that kid too. I'm very much an Anna, and I needed that. And my mom finally figured it out, and then my husband did, and then I wasn't able to get that because kids. So it's really when your child is slipping your way, make sure to be interested in them, but don't make them feel like they're under a microscope. Yeah. You need to make sure you are having your own needs met, not from your children.
Right.
They are not there to meet your needs.
Yeah. And
I know we went into this whole parenting thing thinking that's why we're having children, but that's not why we have them.
Nope.
It's to bring good into the world
every time.
And we're helping them to do that. We're not breaking them. We're not molding them, creating them. They already were born with this personality. Yeah. We're figuring out how to best guide.
Yeah. And parent them to be the best they can be according to their design, respecting their differences, respecting the diversity, and being the mom that they need to be. And you've got more than one child, and so do I. And we both know that they're very uniquely different. And with what we do and being able to have a blueprint and seeing the assessments and then realizing, okay, there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with my child. We do see life differently. And then putting together the strategy so that you don't have so many bumps in the road going into this. It really will just make a smoother transition, because this is where it starts to get wonky for a lot of people. It really does. So as we're wrapping up today, and Autumn, I'm so glad that we had this conversation, because you are right in the thick of it. And you shared so many good golden nuggets about how, because of your background and what you've been applying, not only from your own life, but even understanding his personality and understanding what you need as well as a mom and as a woman, how you've been able to navigate this, and you are doing an amazing job. But I just want to remind every parent listening that if your child is pulling away, and I know it feels that way, it's not a rejection of you. And I know it feels that way, but it is a natural part of growing up. And honestly, I remember it's messy, it's emotional, it was overwhelming all at the same time. But the truth is, I want you to hold on, is they still need you. They just need you in a different way than we did before. So I kind of put it to, we move from manager of the whole household to mentor, right? I'm now mentoring my kids. I'm going from protector, and protecting them, to then guiding them, right? And letting them experience some things. And that shift takes a little courage, because it's hard to let go and feel as though they're going to get hurt or something's going to happen. But we need to let them do that, because they're figuring out who they're becoming. And I'm learning how to love them through every stage of who they're becoming. So that's my job. So let's take a breath. Give yourself some grace. Stay open, stay steady, and keep showing up with that same quiet, consistent love that holds a family together, even through these big transitions, because this is a big one. And the next one that's going to come is when, they push off and they leave the nest. But you're not losing your kid. We're not losing them. We're just learning a new way to connect with them. And the relationship that comes out of this season, it's going to be deeper, it's going to be richer and more meaningful than everything you ever experienced before. But this is a real tender season in which we do that. I always say that this was a make or break season.
When you pull away, when you're not as deep in it with them and you can see them more from a distance, you get glimmers of how they're going to be as adults, which is so heartwarming. It's so fun.
It is seeing them as who they are becoming. It's just wonderful. And it is going to be deeper and more meaningful than anything you ever experienced when you start to see who they're becoming and knowing that you are a part of that. And if we do it right, we will still be the go-to. I'm still the go-to for my kids. I'm still the first phone call. I'm still, guidance and wisdom. Kyle buying a house. Will you look at the house? Will you help me go over my mortgage papers? And when he was 16, I didn't think that would ever happen. It was that turbulent. But to know that we navigate it correctly and we don't overreact to it, it'll come back together and we will have that relationship we desire. But just knowing that physically and emotionally, there's so much going on in their little bodies and their brains at this time, to not take it personally and try and guide them through that. So I'm telling you, parents, you've got this. Keep parenting by design. Trust the process in what you do, and understanding yourself, understanding you're a child, adapt your interactions, apply the right strategy so that you can maintain that relationship that we desire. So I'm so excited to have gone through this conversation with you, because I know there are so many parents going through it, and it's a really scary time. And Autumn, you brought so many gold nuggets to the table. So any last minute words of wisdom before we close out today?
Yeah, and you actually made me think about it. So in the conversation that I've been having with my son, is he knows if he is being bullied or something that's like a big deal like that, talk to daddy first, because mama bear is coming out and she's not going to listen all the way. So, and I think you started to hit on that. There's certain things that he knows to go talk to his dad about versus you or different people.
Yeah.
So you can show your children that you're human with flaws, and don't show that you're perfect, because then they realize when they're teenagers and they feel like you lied to them. It's ugly. Trust me. I was that teenager. Ugly. Show them that there are certain strengths that you have and weaknesses, and show them where they can go to get their needs met on your weaker side. So if there's certain conversations that my son is worried that I'm going to be a little more jump the gun and I'm going to go beat everybody up and not going to listen to the whole story,
Yeah.
he's going to talk to daddy first.
Yep.
If he needs this other need met that mommy and daddy can't meet, we have shown him where to go for those other needs that need to be met. So you can do that.
And not even expecting an immediate response to that. It's almost like plant the seed, let it percolate, and then they'll make a move. I know with my kids, it's like I can make a suggestion, but it's not like it happened right away. Then they'd come back around when they were ready. It was their time. It's almost like parent a cat, you know what I mean? It's not, they don't respond immediately like a dog would. They're just a little moodier,
Yes.
when we're going through this. And listeners, honestly, if you are struggling with this is what we do here at the Parenting Blueprint, is help parents navigate through every season of parenting by understanding the temperaments and the personality dynamics within the family, so you can adapt those interactions and apply the right strategies and smooth out the wrinkles as we get through every season of parenting. So again, Autumn, I want to thank you so much for sharing your nuggets and your pearls of wisdom. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like and subscribe and share this to any of your parent friends who are experiencing the same thing or heading into this season of life and getting through parenting through the transition from tweens to teens into adolescence. So thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you the next time on Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. We'll talk to you then. Take care. Bye.